ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side three is good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
It's Thursday, August 30th, and your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Coming up later on the program, we're going to talk to the voice of the Miami Redhawks, Steve Baker. He's going to join us. We'll talk to him about the upcoming matchup between Marshall and Miami. That's Saturday, and you can, of course, listen to the game right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. And coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to hear from Joe Bartle from RotoWire. So we'll talk to him in a few minutes. We're getting him connected right now as we speak. I'm excited. We're getting closer to game time. We have got football all over the place. High school football this weekend. We'll be video streaming Huntington High, Riverside. That's coming up tomorrow night. You can check it out by going to our website at wrbc.com. Also, find us on Facebook. We'll have the game for you. And, of course, you can listen to it on the radio side right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. So that's what we've got in store for you. As mentioned, we're going to be connecting here in just a moment with Joe Bartle from RotoWire. So he's going to be our guest here in a moment. So we're doing that right now. Until then, it's just going to be you and me. We're hanging out, getting you set for all the action this weekend. I'm excited. We got college football. It's back. Thundering Herd, Miami. So we're not getting Joe as quickly as I thought we'd be getting him. So we will try here for just a minute. Of course, fantasy football. That's what Joe's going to be talking to us about. And the office fantasy football pool is about to begin. So I thought this would be helpful for everyone in the office to get the most important fantasy football tips they possibly could get. And unfortunately, for some of our people in this office, they don't need any tips, man. I think I'm the one that needs the tips a little bit more. So we're getting Joe connected now, looks like. So we're going to get him squared away here and do this show properly. So we can welcome to the program now Joe Bartle from RotoWire, which is the industry's premium fantasy sports resource for over 2 decades. Joe hasn't been there for 2 decades, but that's okay. He's as experienced as they come. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing well, yeah. Not quite 2 decades. I'll work my way up there. Don't worry about it, though.
You'll get there. You'll get there. So we got preseason football coming up tonight, and just for a note for our listeners, that's a game they can listen to right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930, as we've got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Indianapolis Colts. We'll join that game a little bit late due to some programming obligations, but over on our sister station, we'll go on the air at 5:30. Now, that means we can get into fantasy football full swing because the preseason is going to be over after tonight. As a fantasy football guy, what do you look at with these final preseason games? Do these have any meaning for you?
Not really. I mean, truthfully, they don't. This is more for the guys that are around that 35 to 53 range and that 53-man roster that are trying to fight for the spot and gain more depth chart-wise. I think as a fantasy owner, it's okay to follow the preseason, and you should be up to date and at least have some idea of what's going on. But to look too much into it, I think, is a trap. And you just have to be safe with some of the analysis. The coaches are purposely not going to be showing things during preseason. There are players that aren't going to be playing as much during the preseason. And I think try to look too much into preseason games ends up being a bit of a downfall, especially when putting together your lineup. So, no, I try not to take that much away from the preseason games when it comes to fantasy.
So you're set to go. You've got your notes. You're ready to go. Your strategy is already in place. Nothing tonight other than a major injury, which hopefully is not going to happen because these guys aren't going to be out there that long, would change anything.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, let's talk, for instance, about the game that you were just advertising before. I'm interested to see how Marlon Mack and Jordan Wilkins end up doing. I've been a huge fan of Marlon Mack since he was drafted by the Colts last year. I think he has a ton of talent, and that injury really impacted a lot of how I would have looked for mid to late round running backs. I do think Jordan Wilkins is a kind of talented guy as well, though. So if he's able to do well this preseason game and he earns that starting job, should Marlon Mack get out, that or continue to be hurt, I think that's an interesting dynamic to kind of keep an eye on. And there's a few more of that around the league, like Peyton Barber, I should say, and Ronald Jones. People like that I'm still kind of fascinated to see, and even Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Those are the types of things I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But at this point, I feel pretty comfortable with what I'm going to be entering the NFL season with, and as a result, I feel pretty comfortable with what I know and what I want to target when it comes to fantasy.
Now, I heard an interesting comment, a way that someone's doing fantasy football. I want to throw at you. I heard this a couple of days ago with one of the members of the media here in the market. They've been doing a fantasy football league for about 15 years, he said. And he's got, I think, everybody almost back on a yearly basis, and they do it a little bit differently. They actually keep the same players on a yearly basis or trade for players. How do you look at a league like that for a fantasy football player who maybe wants to do something with his friends on a long-term basis, and that seems a little overwhelming?
See, I actually like that. What you're referring to, at least from my understanding, is either a keeper or dynasty league fantasy format. And I actually am in a dynasty league with a bunch of my friends from high school. We've been able to keep going for now 6 or 7 years. And it's really something that I enjoy. It puts an emphasis on the college game, which is something I love. More football, the better. That's kind of how I live my life. So I get to watch more of the college game and understand dynamics there and kind of do some self-scouting beforehand. But the strategical element of where you're getting your players or when you might be getting your players in a keeper or dynasty league is a lot different than a snake draft. And to me, adding more strategy to just a regular snake draft type of format is something I really enjoy as a fantasy player. I think it really helps also kind of fall in love with some of these players that you might have already loved. Instead of just rooting for maybe your favorite team, you can also root for a favorite player because you have them on your fantasy team, not just this year, but for multiple years down the road. So a keeper and dynasty format, like what you were just describing, is one of my favorite aspects about fantasy that's, I think, a little bit unheralded, and I really wish would get more attention in the fantasy scene.
What do you think it's about it maybe that's not getting as much attention? Just the fact that most people, when they play fantasy, they're going with maybe an online service, and I don't know if the online services, for the most part, have a system like that, or maybe they do, and I've just overlooked it.
There's a few. I think the standard ones that you look at Yahoo or ESPN, they really don't have a keeper or dynasty league format. They're growing, and I think they're kind of listening to a bit more of that, I would say, minority audience as far as incorporating that into their regular fantasy coverage and their regular fantasy leagues kind of being able to put together. But for the most part, you have to go to different sites to be able to do something like that. I like to use AutoNew. It's a relatively new site that also incorporates a bit of the auction league format into the keeper or dynasty league thing. But there are ways to incorporate it into just a regular ESPN or Yahoo league. It takes a bit of a workaround, I think, and it takes more of a smart commissioner or a heads-up commissioner to be able to kind of keep a daily task, not daily, I should say a weekly task of everything that goes on and keeping track of everything and making sure it all runs smoothly. But for the most part, there are, I would say, smaller sites that are putting those keeper or dynasty leagues together as opposed to the big-name value brands, I should say.
Joining us from RotoWire, Joe Bartle, and he's been covering fantasy football for years at RotoWire. And now, with fantasy football taking off, I think, a lot more than in years past, you also got the online gambling. We've talked about that last week, and I'm noticing now more and more people are getting into Madden even more with their Madden Ultimate Team. Maybe not exactly what we're talking about, but still there's that fantasy component to it as well because you're drafting teams, and still you have to go out there and play. But it seems like fantasy has just evolved from your standard draft a team and go play. There's more ways to play fantasy football now than ever.
Yeah, it's funny you should bring up Madden Ultimate Team. That's one of my favorite side projects. And I also am the esports editor at RotoWire. I wear a lot of hats in our company. So I love Madden. I love playing Madden Ultimate Team, and it's a fun way to put together your roster. It's different than fantasy football, obviously. I mean, there's real life money implications sometimes on the line in your fantasy football league, and in Madden Ultimate Team, there's not quite those kinds of things going on. But there is, I think, a public perception that's growing with fantasy sports where it's not just this cliche thing that maybe only a few of your friends do. I think it's really reaching a wide audience. It's not just for young people; it's for old people. It's not just for males. Females are doing this, are very active in fantasy leagues as well. It's growing to be not just a niche thing, but more of a pop culture thing. And it's cool to see and cool to be a part of and kind of on the cutting edge of this growth in fantasy football. I don't see it going away anytime soon. I think what it adds to not just the football experience, but a sociological or a societal experience is really something that I admire and I enjoy kind of watching unfold.
I didn't know you're the esports editor as well. That's kind of fun because, of course, Madden is what it is. It's a beast every year, and a few years ago it'll be college football as well. So esports have really taken off, and I think part of it is, would you say, the fantasy aspect that has been seeping in more and more? You see it with FIFA. You see it with the latest 2K entries for basketball, NHL as well. It seems like there's a huge fantasy component to those online games.
Yeah, and we also do a lot of League of Legends coverage and Dota 2 coverage, too, and those aren't sports-specific games, but they are part of that esports realm, and Dota 2 really incorporated into their international tournament last week and kind of over the course of this last month, where they really gave interesting prizes away to Dota 2 users that kind of followed along and incorporated that into their fantasy game. And League of Legends, as a fantasy guy that loves fantasy football, I also love League of Legends. I wish they would do more with the fantasy aspect because they definitely could, especially in the professional leagues. But that is still there, and it's you even see it in DraftKings too that they sponsor esports leagues too. So I think that fantasy, it's not just a fantasy football thing. There's fantasy baseball, basketball, and esports too. I mean, it really is a wide spectrum of things for fantasy sports.
Joining us from RotoWire, it is Joe Bartle. He's been there for years, and of course, RotoWire, one of the premier destinations for fantasy football. You guys have got a great deal. If you log onto the website right now, you can get free access to try the site out, find out if you like it, and what kind of information can we get at RotoWire that maybe fans need that they don't know they need?
Oh, I think I was actually just talking about this with one of my colleagues earlier today. The points allowed by position, by team, is a really fascinating stat that I end up using quite a bit when I'm stuck between two players I like quite a bit. I can look at, say, I had a conversation with a colleague about Eric Ebron or Evan Engram as far as which tight end I should start. Now, Evan Engram, obviously a stud tight end for the Giants, likely will be a feature part of that offense, but he is going against the Jaguars defense in week one. We'll counter that with a guy like Eric Ebron, who's, I would say, more of a late-round pick. But he could be a factor and has been a factor throughout the Colts preseason thus far. And maybe he's been a better option against the Cincinnati Bengals in week one. Both players you can kind of compare and contrast. Well, Jaguars actually allowed a little bit of middle of the pack in terms of points to the tight end spot. And Bengals were right around there too. So all things being equal, I'm obviously going to go Evan Engram in that sense. And I love using that defense versus position tool when it comes to tough decisions in my fantasy lineup. I also love the fact I can see all the news and injury analysis that goes on. I mean, that's up to date. That's not just on the website. That's on Twitter, too. I mean, those are all over the updates if you follow RotoWire on Twitter. And the cheat sheets, too, especially as we're getting closer to this draft time. And really, it's the last week and a half where you can make your drafts. Using these cheat sheets that are getting updated frequently is a good way to kind of figure out where the value is based off of the average draft position that's going around in the league so far.
Do you think that more people are going to fantasy now because this seems to be the better way to understand the game of football? I mean, you have to really know what's going on to understand fantasy, and I think a lot of people maybe have gotten into fantasy because they want to know more about the NFL. Do you see that?
That's probably a good way of looking at it. I've always assumed the interest, or the additional interest, I should say, in fantasy football is just because it's a new layer to watch the game and enjoy the game. So I think at least my generation has kind of moved past where teams of or we're fans of specific teams. That's there, but now we're kind of fans of specific players and fans of, really whatever you want to make it to be. And fans of your fantasy football team, or at least the players on your fantasy football team, it adds a different layer. It makes watching, last year's Cowboys versus Giants game on Sunday Night Football not such a headache at times. I think I have to watch Ezekiel Elliott, or I have to see how Eli Manning's going to do for my fantasy team. It adds a bit of layer to those games that aren't your favorite team, and I think that more than anything else is really the reason why fantasy football has grown to what it is today.
Joe, before we let you go, any suggestions this week? Anybody that, if I'm starting to draft here in the next few days, I better go ahead and get, or are there some players that if they come up and they're available, I should look at seriously as a way to boost my team?
I'm interested in Royce Freeman. Devontae Booker was technically listed as the starter for the Broncos. I'd be surprised even if that changes by the time next week rolls around. But if Devontae Booker is going to be the starter, I do not think it's going to be for the long term. But that should affect Royce Freeman's draft stock, at least initially for these last couple of weeks. And I think he's the far more talented Broncos running back. I expect him to be the starter at some point, but a guy that was going in the fourth round I didn't know for certain. Now he's probably going to fall to the 5, 6, 7 round, and I think that's a much more palpable value for a guy that I believe is the far superior talent in that Broncos backfield. So I think you're going to get plenty of value out of a guy like Royce Freeman if you're drafting later on. Just because Devontae Booker apparently is going to be the starter, I'm not buying that, though. I would go Freeman all the way if I could invest right now.
Okay, and who should I draft for my Madden Ultimate team? Because, man, I'm not sticking with Andy Dalton. I'm not doing it.
No, that's fair. I think for your Madden Ultimate team, I've really been actually rolling with the Carson Wentz card that you end up getting through by playing the Journey. But Baker Mayfield, too, is a card that I've been having a lot of success with on my Madden Ultimate team. So just a couple of different options at quarterback if you don't want to go the Andy Dalton route.
All right. I'm going to be following RotoWire even closer now that you get the Madden stuff going on there, the esports, because it's Pokemon for sports fans, man. You play that Madden Ultimate Team one time, you're hooked.
Absolutely, and I'm also a Pokemon fan too. So there it goes. We're full circle at this point now.
Joe, we'll catch up with you next week. Looking forward to it because we'll be one step closer to actually some real football. Yes,
I cannot wait. Let's go. Let's get some actual NFL games started.
Joe, thanks for talking to us. We'll do it again next week.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, guys. That's
Joe Bartle from RotoWire. We're going to take our next break, come back. We'll get some of your phone calls in later on. We're going to talk Marshall and Miami. We'll have the voice of the Miami Redhawks joining us. His name is Steve Baker. He'll be with us on the program later on. And then we will get you closer to the Doc Holliday call-in show and Inside Herd Athletics with Mike Hamrick. That's all coming up tonight here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Don't worry. Paul Swann has the wheel on The Drive. ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Thursday edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Steve Baker is going to join us in a few minutes. We'll talk Marshall and Miami, the Thundering Herd traveling to Oxford. Homecoming on a Saturday. First game of the regular season, already homecoming. We'll talk to him about that and get your preview of this one as much as we possibly can all the way from now until Saturday. Still doing some game prep here now, getting ready for our pregame on Saturday. We'll be live at Roosters. So if you can't afford the pay-per-view for the game, you can, of course, come to Roosters, watch the game with us, or if you can't afford the pay-per-view for the game, you can tune in right here for free, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. So doing some research on this squad, and, of course, what we really know is it's going to be tough for Marshall because this is a Miami squad that comes back with 19 starters. They've got 8 offensive and 8 defensive returners. They've got 3 special teams people coming back. They've got a squad that has 47 letter winners from last year's team. Of course, they went 5-7 overall. If they beat Marshall, they're 6-6. And that was a game where they could have won. Special teams really took care of the game for Marshall. But they were 4-4 in the MAC. They've got all of their starting offensive linemen coming back. Defensively, they've got a strong group of people coming back. But offensively, you want to keep an eye out, of course, for Kenny Young. He is their top running back who's coming back. Gus Ragland, we've talked about him a little bit. Last year, he was 150 of 269 passing, threw for over 2,000 yards, had 19 touchdowns. And they've got a pretty good wide receiver, James Gardner. We're going to keep an eye on him on Saturday. Had 47 receptions last year, so he's their top returnee coming back. He had almost 1,000 yards, and he had 11 touchdowns. So they've got a good core of players coming back. And you heard Doc earlier this week really had nice things to say about Chuck Martin, who is their head coach. He's in his 5th year. Overall in his career, he's 90-40. At Miami, it's been tough going 16-33. So he's trying to put this program back to where it needs to be. Miami is really excited about this game. Picked 3rd, I believe, in the Mid-American Conference in the division. Ohio is the favorite this year. Ohio definitely is the team to watch out for in the East Division. They got 10 first-place votes from their preseason poll. Buffalo's picked second. Miami's considered third best in that division. West is Northern Illinois. And you look at the West, there's really more balance there. Ohio is the runaway favorite in the East, but Miami's right there. Miami is right there. So, again, I like this game. I like it's being played as an opener. This is a good series. I like to see it maybe on, not every year, but I want to see it on a recurring basis because you want to get Ohio back in on the rotation. Definitely love playing the Bobcats. I like the fact that they're going to resume hostilities of sorts. So coming up, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and take our next break. We'll come back. We'll be joined on the program by the voice of the Miami Redhawks. His name is Steve Baker. He's going to tell us what we need to know for Saturday when we continue with today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Want to welcome to the program now Steve Baker. He's the voice of the Miami Redhawks. Marshall traveling to Oxford, take on Miami Saturday. It's homecoming, so I'm sure a lot of Redhawk fans are excited about that. Let's talk to Steve now, who's with us now. Steve, thanks for spending a few minutes with us, and I've got to know, homecoming first week already?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. We only have so many Saturdays, as you guys I'm sure remember from MAC play. There's a lot of weekday November, and our second Saturday we're playing actually what is a home game at Paul Brown Stadium against Cincinnati. And normally, probably that game would be our homecoming, but later on we have family weekend, and then we have our faculty appreciation weekend in October as well. So it just fell that homecoming was going to wind up on this first weekend after class.
Now, Doc Holliday, he was asked about this, and he joked about it. He's really not concerned about it. It's just something more for media folks like us to talk about. But he was kind of curious, how do you pick the homecoming queen?
It's interesting. I really don't know. Usually the court just shows up and they announce whoever won it. So it's interesting at that point. Who you're familiar with, who's actually nominated, and whoever walks out there and they say that you're the queen, I guess.
He suggested absentee ballots were in play for this one, so I don't know.
Yeah, could have been. They could have been voting all summer. Who knows? That's one of those things that I never even really think about. I'm glad Doc's holding that down and thinking about it for us.
We've got to ask him something. First press conference.
Absolutely.
He's not telling us anything. We don't even know who the starting quarterback is. You don't know either. You won't know until game time.
Yeah.
So that's how it goes.
I thought that was one of his better quotes from the press conference was the first person to know will be Jason Corrier. So we've all seen that happen, and hey, it just signifies to me that there's a real battle going on there, and it doesn't really matter who's going to step in there between those two at quarterback. They're both highly capable, and Doc, I think, is going to look at them during warm-ups and say, okay, you did the best in warm-ups, you start today.
I'm looking for maybe a multiple quarterback situation here. You might see one quarterback one drive, one the next. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if that battle is really that tight, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think the more interesting thing for us, obviously, who's running quarterback, each of them a little different styles. They can both certainly run the offense. And the biggest question is, what's that offense going to be for a Miami perspective? A new offensive coordinator, and he has done a different style of his offense in each of the last 3 years. One university didn't look like the next university and that sort of thing, but it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table. And I think that really probably concerns Chuck Martin and the coaching staff more than who the quarterback is going to be.
Steve, with all the questions behind Marshall's quarterback still to be answered, Miami comes into this one pretty sure of itself. Is it fair to say this team knows who it is, its identity, and you've got a lot of returners coming back, and I think a lot of people have been comparing Marshall and Miami, a lot of parallels there, a lot of experience on both sides of this battle on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Doc has a very, very experienced football team, and I think this is a team where Chuck Martin really feels very comfortable with who he's putting out there on the field. I mean, when Chuck took over this program, it's going into his 5th year. When he took it over, the cupboard was a little more than bare in terms of size, in terms of speed, and in terms of a lot of areas. And I think this may be the first year that Chuck can look at his team and say, you know what, I'm really happy with who I've got number 1 on the 2 deep, who I've got number 2 on the 2 deep, and you know what, across the board, number 3 is not bad either. Talent and skill in all the appropriate places, and I think Chuck really likes this football team and has a chance to really prove a lot of things on the field this year.
A lot is expected of quarterback Gus Ragland. He's been pretty good as of as a quarterback. He's been solid, and you got him now another year, and he's probably a lot better.
Yeah, and he just brings an air of leadership, which you want from a quarterback. But he leads in different ways. He's not afraid to go out there and get hit. Obviously, he's shown that in his ability to be mobile and run the football. On occasions, and it's just the way he leads and guides the offense, but also the whole football team. His work ethic is incredible, and having him back again this year for that senior season, I really like what he's done in fall camp, and even in the spring when you go back and watch what he's done there in getting ready for this season. So really excited about seeing him on the field and getting things done for the Red Hawks.
Ragland seems to be getting most of the attention, at least on our side of this, but really Marshall, I'm sure they're aware, but the fans need to be aware. You got a pretty solid running back coming back. Kenny Young, he last year had 6 touchdowns. He ran for almost 800 yards. Definitely was a workhorse. What do you expect out of him this year?
I expect a lot out of him. I think he's really going to have a breakout season. But, the good news, and for Marshall fans, don't be surprised to see 4 different guys line up back there. Kenny Young and Alonzo Smith will get the bulk of the carries. Kenny's more of a speed back. He'll also line up in the slot. He'll go catch the football out of the backfield. Alonzo is more of that power runner, and it certainly brings that to the table. And then behind that, you have Mo Thomas, who is also going to line up in the slot. Mo is the absolute one of the fastest guys on the team, if not the fastest guy on the team. So they're looking to get the ball in space to Mo. And also Jalen Bester, who got a lot of time when Kenny was injured last year. He stepped into the mix, and he's going to bring something to the table as well. So, again, one of those positions that, you really like Kenny and Alonzo, but there's some other guys behind him that you're going to see a lot on Saturday.
So lots of running, but, of course, wide receiver, your top returnee coming back is James Gardner. He almost had 1,000 yards last year, accounted for 11 touchdowns. Does he lead the way for the receivers this year?
Oh, absolutely. Chuck and I talked earlier this week his TV show, and again last night on our radio show. James makes the extraordinary look ordinary. He just makes catches and plays where you look at it and you just wonder how the heck did he do that and make the catch. He battles through contested throws and makes those catches, and just is an incredible spectacle to watch on the football field. To make him go, though, you have to have other receivers to be able to take that double-team pressure off of him at times, and I think we've got that in Luke Mayock across the way, Jack Sorensen, Jalen Walker. There's a bunch of guys out there that can go get the football. Plus, I mentioned you'll see Kenny Young and Mo Thomas line up as a wide receiver. You'll see tight ends line up as receivers. To help, number one, they can go catch the football. They're all really talented receivers, but also to take some of that pressure off of James Gardner and being able to maybe get some one-on-ones out there and really do some work.
Joining us on the program, voice of the Miami Redhawks, Steve Baker. So last year, Keon Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a name
that
I
can't forget that name.
Yeah, that's a name that really struck fear in the heart of Red Hawk fans. Not going to kick to him anymore, are you? Not going to see that?
Probably not. The way the kicking game has changed so much over the last couple of years, and quite honestly, you walk out there the first game and you got a bunch of guys that basically you use a lot of redshirt freshmen on special teams, and in the past we've had to do that because we didn't have anybody else to go out there and run on special teams. But they've all got butterflies, and they've all got that first Division I college experience. And of course, you're playing in Marshall in a stadium that is just absolutely rocking every time you walk in, and you get a little nervous. And I think from the time that the ball was kicked to the time that they ran down, they forgot everything that they learned in fall camp. And we got it corrected after the second one, thankfully, or Keon would have been running wild all the entire game. But I'm confident in our special teams. Sam Sloman can kick the ball and kick it well. We probably won't be kicking to Keon, but I couldn't guarantee that. I really have. I know Chuck has real confidence in our special teams.
Yeah, Keon's the name, of course, it comes up after last year's game. But how aware is this team of Tyler King? That's the name that keeps coming up for Marshall on offense. How aware is Chuck Martin of what he could possibly do?
Oh, I'm sure he's very aware. Chuck has spent a lot of time watching film. He always does. Seeing what's going on, reading. He is one guy that loves to scout the opponent, and in all facets. And I'm sure he is very aware of him, and is working his defense around and accounting for him on the football field.
He's the guy who's most excited, I think, to get out there because he really wants to just get out there. And talking to these guys this week, of course, maybe it's more of a Marshall thing because when I think of rivalries for Miami, I think Ohio first, and same thing for Ohio. I think Miami, and then here's Marshall. Hey, we're here too. We want to be your rival, and you've got that great rivalry with Ohio, and you've got that great rivalry with Miami, but it seems like, all right, that's secondary compared to Ohio, Miami, but it feels like that's changing just a little bit. It's still not going to overtake the Bobcats as the team you want to beat the most, but it still feels like, all right, this is a two-sided thing now.
Yeah, and it stems back a long ways, but certainly when Marshall was in the MAC, that was the rivalry. I mean, Miami, Marshall, you go back to great games there in Huntington and also in Miami with Ben Roethlisberger and, of course, all the big names for Marshall playing in that series with Randy Moss and Chad Pennington, and the list goes on and on. Those were great football games, and it was always a great rivalry. I would love to see that rivalry be renewed. I think it's a great rivalry. It's always intense. The fans at Marshall always travel. They're always intense and absolutely fun as well. And I always loved being a part of that rivalry. And of course, I would love to see that continue.
Steve Baker's joining us. He is the voice of the Miami Redhawks on Saturday. It's going to be Marshall taking on Miami. It's going to be a full house, I'm sure. Lots of Marshall fans in that Cincinnati area, and of course, heard fans travel. Miami always has a great opening game crowd, so this probably should be a standing room only crowd. Is the stadium ready, Yeager? 24,000 plus.
So.
Is it ready for this?
I hope so. Yeah, I'm heading back there right now, as a matter of fact, to make sure I'm ready. I know I've seen people working in there all week getting ready for the game as well, and looks like the weather's going to cooperate. And again, always urge the opponent's fans, particularly Marshall fans. I know you guys come in droves. Allow yourself some extra time. Of course, Oxford's one of those places that you can't get to from here. It's all two-lane highway coming up from Cincinnati, so allow yourself some extra time. As is the case anywhere, I think, in the country during the summer. Everything's under construction, especially the roads. And just take your time getting in. And, you can tune into our broadcast. We'll try and give you some traffic updates when we hit the air about an hour before game time.
Why can't we get this to Paul Brown? Make this one the
Paul Brown would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. I would agree with that. It's tough enough for us to get Cincinnati and Miami in that rivalry that's been going on for over 120 years to get down there for that. But, it's exciting to play down there. I know we've played Kentucky down there and obviously getting ready to play UC down there as well. We played a couple of times against the Bearcats, but great venue. And I know the Bengals do a great job of hosting those games as well.
Looking at the schedule, of course, you mentioned that Cincinnati game, and I know there's no overlooking Marshall for that, even though that's probably a bigger game. But looking at the schedule this year, on the MAC side, you get a shot at Ohio at home, so you might be able to take care of business there. They're the team that's picked to win the East Division. But it's not going to get any easier. Minnesota, and then you got to go on the road to Bowling Green. This is not an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination.
You know, the MAC is one of those conferences that sometimes gets overlooked. There's great football played in there, top to bottom, but clearly Ohio has a great team. They've got a great quarterback, great running back. Their offense is explosive, and their defense is hard-hitting. You can see why they're picked to win the East Division of the Mid-American Conference, but there are so many other teams in here that are good on the East side. Buffalo is in there. Miami's in the mix. Akron, certainly won it last year. And then on the West, Northern Illinois and Toledo are just going to be giant killers, I think, on that side. And you can throw Western Michigan in there a little bit. And, even Central Michigan, although they're picked toward the lower side of the West, I think they could be a surprising team as well. But, very competitive football every time you go, home and away. It's, I think we're going to see, at least from Miami's part, 12 really big dogfights this year. And, not that we won't be in any of those games. I think we'll be in all of those games. It'll be, including Marshall. That's going to be one of those games that I think we go down to the end on.
Steve Baker's joining us, voice of the Miami Redhawks. Before we let you go, Steve, is this the year you think that Chuck Martin breaks through? You look at his record, it's been tough for him to try to build this program back. But you look at last year, this team was a good team. They just didn't win a few games that were really close, and that happens to football teams sometimes. Is this an important year for him? I mean, I don't want to say that he's got to win now to be assured of a job next year, but is that the feeling that, okay, he's got to break through now, or is the feeling that, okay, we're going to break through now?
Yeah, I think we're going to break through. The biggest thing about me and Chuck Martin and me thinking about Chuck and what he's done for the program, as I mentioned earlier, he came in and the cupboard was more than bare. And had to build this program from the very roots, and he's done it the right way. It's not like going for the 1-year fix or the 2-year fix or anything else. He's brought in freshman class after freshman class after freshman class and has built this program. We have offensive linemen now that look like offensive linemen. We have defensive linemen that look like defensive linemen. That wasn't the case when he took over this program. And I'm just excited about the way the program is going. And I think this is, one of those things. I think last year, if it weren't for bad luck, we had no luck at all, as they say. I think this is a year that we overcome some of that bad luck. And back to a bowl game, certainly St. Petersburg Bowl a couple of years ago was a lot of fun for the team and a lot of fun for the program. I think we get back to a bowl this year.
I'm looking forward to this one. It's one of my favorite games on the schedule, no
I
matter
agree.
what.
I agree.
Honestly,
looking forward to seeing Steve Cotton.
Yeah, the voice is coming back. I'm sure you guys can reminisce about all those treks going into Oxford because, wow, that's a tough place to get to.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and they haven't done anything to improve it, guys. The roads are a little bit wider, that sort of stuff, but it's still 2-lane highways, so allow yourself some extra time. And there's construction this time of year. I'm stuck in it right now, as a matter of fact. But just take your time and get in, and safe travels to all the Marshall fans coming up. Number one, take your time and enjoy Oxford, and looking forward to having you in town. Why can't the
hockey team just request that road to be expanded? It would happen, right?
It seems like it sometimes, but it's one of those things that we've talked about, and actually, it's amazing how ODOT schedules things. I mean, 27 in town in Oxford has been under construction all summer long, and we get that cleared up, and then ODOT closes a part of the 27 back toward Cincinnati a little bit for the week, and we're hoping that they get it done. It's supposed to reopen tomorrow, and everything will be fine. But that's one of those things that scare you when you see road closed signs beginning on this date come up. So hopefully it's all open and ready to go and ready to bring a lot of people into Oxford on Saturday.
Steve, thanks for spending some time with me today. Appreciate it. I can't personally make the trip on Saturday, but I'm still looking forward to watching this one. Yeah, I'm stuck here. I got to do I got to get the free meal after the pregame. We do the
there
remote.
You go.
Yeah, so I'll be at Rooster. So yeah, chicken wings and all that kind of stuff. It's really going to be tough for me.
Somebody's got to do it. All we have is La Rosa's, so chicken and Rooster sounds a little bit better.
Steve, have fun on Saturday. Looking forward to this one. Appreciate your time on this, and we'll be all watching with excitement on this one.
Very good, Paul. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you having me on.
That's Steve Baker, voice of the Miami Redhawks. We're going to take our next break, come back. We're getting closer to Inside Herd Athletics with Marshall University Athletic Director Mike Hamrick. I'm looking forward to that. Also, the first edition of the Doc Holliday Call-In Show. It's all coming up later on this hour here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
What'd you say? I can't hear you because of the feed. Can you take that out of my ear? Now talk to me. I can hear you now. A little what? Check. I don't know what to tell you. There's nothing else I can adjust here on that. Ask Paul real quick, see what he thinks. Hello, 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, check. Hello, 1 2 3 4 5. That doesn't get adjusted. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. How about that? Is that better? Hello. Okay. Hey, let me ask you this here real quick. Check this mic. Check 1 2. How's that one? Is that one good? Check 1 2. Check. You got me? This sounds good. It's fine. Check 1 2. 1 1 1 1 1. Is that good? Okay, thanks. We'll be ready when you guys are. Just go ahead and send me back the feed. Thank you. And you're really hot, by the way. Thank you very much. Thank you. Think Mike will stick to this? It's laminated for him today this time.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're just a couple minutes away for another couple of hours of Herd Sports. What's coming up tonight is the first edition of this year's Inside Herd Athletics with Marshall University Athletic Director Mike Hamrick. Now, let me sell the show to you again because this is a golden opportunity for you to ask the athletic director questions. And you can join the program, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Now, if you go on social media, you sometimes question what's going on at Marshall. You have comments, you have criticisms. You kind of wish, I would like to ask Mike Hamrick why this is happening. Or you just want to know something that only Mike Hamrick can tell you because he's the man with the inside knowledge. This is your opportunity. He does not duck questions. He does not hide from anything. He will answer your questions as truthfully as anyone I've ever talked to. So he's going to be on with you in a few minutes. After that, you've got Doc Holliday, his first coach's show. So the voice of the herd, Steve Cotton, will be with Doc, and they're going to preview from the coach's point of view this game between Marshall and Miami. So stay tuned for all of that. And then after that, we've got coming up, we're going to join this one in progress here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. We've got the Bengals taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Now, that game already going on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. So if you want to catch the game, which kicks off at 7, we'll have that for you on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. Or if you just want to tune in to the Doc Holliday Show and then catch the game afterwards, just keep it right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. And, of course, Saturday, our coverage plans. We go on the air at 12:30. We're going to be live at Rooster. So if you're looking for a way to watch the game, you can't do the pay-per-view, we've got you covered. Or, of course, you can stay where we've got you covered here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Also on 93.7 The Dog. So several ways for you to follow Herd Athletics. That's going to do it for this edition of our program, but it continues coming up in the next few minutes as Inside Herd Athletics with Mike Hamrick, then the Doc Holliday Call-In Show, then the Cincinnati Bengals, right here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. I want to thank my producer tonight, Gabriel Sellards, also his father, Kenny Sellards, also a producer of this show at times. Appreciate those two for taking good care of me on the technical side and for the Rockstar energy drink that's got me through the second half of this program. For those gentlemen, I'm Paul Swann. Have a great evening, everyone.
Huntington's Sports Station.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Alex Thomas. A U.S. Marshal has been authorized to collect more than $1 million owed by the companies of Governor Jim Justice and his family. This is another issue regarding debts of the governor and his companies. Metro News statewide correspondent Brad McElhenney has more at WVMetroNews.com. South Charleston residents are remembering the life of a local high school football standout. Tyler Harris died Wednesday in a shooting at his home in Lynchburg, Virginia. Harris was quarterback from 2008 to 2010, winning the Kennedy Award in 2009. Former South Charleston head coach John Messenger says Harris was a reliable player in the clutch.
It didn't matter what game, what situation, what was going wrong. You